That's not it. That's not it. I tried to count us in twice. I love it. I love live interviews. I'm Chris. I am the Long Box Punk. He is Dio. Dio, how are you, dude? How's it going?
Very good. How about yourself?
I'm so good. It's Tuesday. It's a little rough going back to the regular job after a long weekend, but
Right.
I had this to look forward to, so it made the
Awesome.
day well worth it. So,
Awesome. Thank you.
yeah, appreciate you taking some time out of your evening to hang out with me here on the Long Box Punk and just talk about comics and music and who knows what else, because we are live. So
Awesome.
who knows where we're going to end up. And that's the beauty of doing it live, is you get
Exactly.
to have fun and follow tangents and just kind of, free form and see what happens. So
Totally.
tell me a little bit about you, about how you ended up doing comics and why now in 2024 and all the things. Give me all the information.
Sure. My love for comics started many years ago. I'm pushing 50. So, my love for comics started when I was about 12. Comic books specifically. Now, but prior to that, I loved all the heroes and stuff, Spider-Man cartoons and this and that.
Mhm.
But my love for comics really started around 12 years old when I picked up my first Batman comic. And from there on out, it opened up the world to me that as somebody who used to draw and love telling stories, that I could actually do it all together by myself. So that is essentially the epicenter of my love for comics. But as for why I'm doing it in 2024, I've had this story incubating, within myself for as long as I've loved comics. So we're talking 35 years now. And I finally got to the point where I had written out the story to where I was happy with it. And here we are, 2024, and I'm putting out the Tome of Reckoning.
Great. So tell me, I've got this handy dandy guy. So tell me about the Tome of Reckoning. What's the story so far? Because this isn't the first issue, right? This is the third.
This is the
that
third
right?
issue. Yes,
Okay.
yes, it is. So far, it all starts off with a young woman named Maureen McKeown, who is brought back to Florida to handle some affairs since her mother just passed away. And she starts having these visions, these dark visions, with a subtle threat saying they're coming for you. And shortly thereafter, a stranger appears on her doorstep, changing her life forever. And she's embroiled in this cross-country chase in order to find some safe passage as the end of the world is happening all around her.
Awesome. So is that where issue 3 picks up? Is she still on this journey across country?
She is. This is actually pretty much the start of her journey. She's actually way across country at this point in time. Issue 3 picks up with a whole new set of characters being introduced. Essentially, these are after issue 3. It's essentially all these characters are going to be the ones we follow through the whole story. But there's a huge set of a huge cast of characters, an eclectic cast, and issue 3 just is really just pushing the narrative along and really getting the ball rolling on the adventure.
Cool. So this is a great spot for new readers such as myself to kind of jump in, get caught up, and then see like where the story is going to be launching from here.
For sure. And in saying that as well, I have some good because I know times are a little tricky right now, but I have some good prices on digital on all the campaigns as well. So you're not really taking too much of a chance, I would say, to see if you really like it. But I think people will like it. I've gotten some good feedback, and I've written the story for myself, and I'm pretty critical on myself. So hopefully that shows with the storytelling and the art in the book.
Cool. Now, did you just do the writing on this series?
No, I'm the artist and the writer on it. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So the pencils, inks are all me, and then the colors are my wife, and then the letters are a gentleman by the name of Devison Manes, Brazilian dude, great letterer, love his stuff. And then the cover artist is is a gentleman by the name of Eduardo Herrera, and the flats on issue 1 and 2 were done by a lovely flatter named Priya Lannis. But issue 3 is going to be just myself, my wife, Ed Herrera, and Davison on this one. So we hope to get Prion back again later on. So
cool. Now, I've always wondered, and I've always been scared to ask, What's the difference between a colorist and a flatter? Because I hear that term all the time, like flats provided by, like, what does that even mean?
So essentially, a flatter just puts in. So for digital colors specifically, they put in all the basic colors in the places where they need to be. So when the colors comes in to do their stuff, they can just click everything. It's essentially the grunt work, so to speak. Now,
Okay.
she's a flatter, but she's also a colorist in her own right. It's essentially just cuts down the workload for the colorist. With issue one, Jewel did the colors flat out. No pun intended. Uh, Issue three, she's doing flats as well. She's doing the whole book as well. And Jules tends to work in a painterly way where it's she just sort of just does what she wants to do. But the flats were awesome because I did most of the colors on issue two, and Pre was awesome. It really cuts down the workload, especially if you get a good flatter, because they put all the colors in a certain place, and it's all easily accessible for you to click and then change colors out and then do your fine tuning of highlights, lowlights, and all that fun stuff. Hopefully, I
Okay.
explained it.
Yeah. Because before I was like, I don't understand what that means. So is it specific then to digital coloring?
It is. It is. So just digital coloring.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure, 99.9% sure. But there is, there's other shortcuts and stuff that artists take as well. Some artists have people do their backgrounds. You'll never know because they're not really credited, but they'll have people do backgrounds and whatnot. So there's little tips and tricks and ways to cut corners. But flatters usually, luckily, get the credit they deserve. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's definitely a tedious job, but a good flatter is awesome to have.
Cool. Yeah, like I said, I had no idea. So now I understand the difference when I see that credited because I was like, I assume it's colors, but like I like what is flat color compared
Right,
to is it like the colors then coming in and just doing like shading and highlighting over top of it? That's where my mind was going.
right, right,
Um, so,
right.
but yeah, that makes a whole lot more sense the way that you explained it, as opposed to my very rudimentary.
Close. I would say you were pretty spot on. So you were 95% there. So
Great. I'll take it. I'll take it. So what's it like working on the book with your wife? That's got to be cool, right?
it is. Yeah, it's awesome. She's a great artist in her own right. I think she's a better artist than I am. I tell her all the time. But yeah, it's nice to actually have that studio feeling within the house, because that's one of the
Yeah.
things that I enjoy about comics is the bullpen aspect of it and the camaraderie of working on a book together and actually being able to bounce ideas off of each other. So yeah, it's really nice. Yeah, it's awesome. Super cool.
Cool. And then you said your letter is he in Brazil or is he just
No,
uh
he's Brazilian and in Brazil. And he's
okay.
actually you'll see his name in a lot of places. Davison Mane. So it's DeyvisonManes. And
Okay.
he's doing a bunch of work right now for Comixology,
Okay.
directly for them, who are putting out a bunch of books. And he's just, man, he's an amazing letterist. And I know, you think letterist, what's the big deal? But for me, even when the colors are on a page, it doesn't look done until the letters are on there. And
Yeah.
his letters, just the placement of everything, his onomatopoeias, it's amazing work. I love that guy's stuff. So
That's cool. Yeah, I have gotten into I've had a handful of interviews with creators that have done lettering, have done writing, have done art, and the more that I learn about lettering, the more interesting it gets,
mm,
and the more that I'm like, I just want to keep learning about letter. Like, I
it's
didn't
awesome.
I didn't realize that lettering was its own thing. I just thought initially like, oh yeah, it's just like the writer does that because it's writing, right?
Right, right.
And then, once I like a buddy of mine actually does lettering and he's a letterer and editor.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so he was like, yeah, no, good letterers, you don't even notice that they're lettering. If it's a bad letterer, you'll notice immediately what bad lettering is. And
Totally,
I
totally.
was like, that sounds so abstract. And I've mentioned that to other letters, and they're like, no, that's exactly right. And I'm like, okay. I mean, like, it makes sense now that I'm learning about it because I'm paying more attention to it. And
Right.
I get so hyper focused on something that
Awesome.
if it interests me, I'm like, I got to know everything about this thing. And I got to just like chase all the information down that I can about it. And lettering has kind of become that thing for me right now.
That's funny.
And So it like I totally get it doesn't feel finished until you see the letters on the page.
100%.
Yeah, I totally. So how did you connect with him if you're in completely different parts of the world?
There's a great website that's actually coming back online. I just talked to the guy who ran it, not just recently. I just talked to him. It was a website called Digital Webbing, which doesn't sound like a comic book website at all. But it's I think they put out First Comics, if I'm not mistaken. Don't hold me to that. But it was a message board where literally you could find just great collaborators, man. And he was one of those guys. And I found him quite a few years, 5, 6 years ago. And I've been working with him. He's been, luckily enough, working with me, generous enough to work with me, and he's awesome. But yeah, digital webbing. If anybody's listening now or later on, keep an eye on that, and especially Chris. I'll send you a message as soon as it comes back live, because it's dead now, but it was just one of the best, seriously, one of the best comic websites ever for inkers, for writers, for artists, for anything. And I'd never had an issue finding collaborators on that site. Everybody was literally there, which is the love of comics. So
that's awesome. Yeah. I know that I've seen some resources that seem to be doing the same thing, but every time that I like get on different platforms like that, it just is so like, it feels so muddled and confused, and like there's so many different things and people trying to find other people. It just like I haven't found one that makes sense to my brain to be like, oh yeah, okay, this, all right, I can navigate this with no assistance from somebody else. So.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I've been using some, was MailChimp, and it's all so not intuitive. Some of these sites that I just sort of give up. But going back to digital webbing, it's awesome. At the very top of the page, it's work for hire, and then right below it is collaborators, and then below that is just people posting their artwork or stories, and it's just. And hopefully, when it comes back, it's going to be as simple as it was before, simple in the best way ever. Because for to your point, it's so hard to find some things nowadays where it's just like just give me the simplicity. You know what I mean? I don't need all the bells and whistles. Just make it easy for me to find what I need, and that's how that site was, and hopefully it'll be like that in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, I never used like dating apps. I was lucky enough to meet my wife at work. Like we worked together and it just kind of happened. But like I would love for it to be like a dating app where I can say like I'm a writer looking for an artist in this style, and then like match me and just wait. Like nope, swipe left. Oh, hey, swipe right. Like that's the kind of the thing that I guess my brain wants, is just like I don't know what style. You know, like I can't draw to save my life. I have really terrible just like ink stuff that I've done, and I'm like, that this isn't leaving. These are just like stick it, doodles that I do while I'm on meetings or whatever. But like I really enjoy writing, but then it's like, well, okay, so if I did write a script, like how am I going to find a writer? And every writer that I've talked to that works with illustrators that aren't in their backyard, or they didn't already know, or they weren't already friends with, or whatever, it's like, oh, I found them on a subreddit. I just was perusing Instagram, and it's all like every single person has a different like how they met their collaborator story, which is awesome. And also like as someone that's going to be looking for somebody potentially is super daunting. So if
you might have a good idea. Making a dating website for artist collaborators. I think that's a great idea. You might have a idea in that concept right there. But yeah, you're right. There's just so many different places to find stuff that it's just it is daunting. You know what I mean? It's not and I'm glad in the same way that we both met our wives at work. I'm glad I met some of these guys back in the day when it was a little bit more simple. Because nowadays it just seems really hard, man, to find. To find who you're looking for. Twitter doesn't seem like to be a bad place, but then the bots come out as soon as you say, I'm looking for a collaborator. Then it's just, bots for days. And it's like, okay, you're really killing it for me here. So.
Right. And it's weird. Like even since I launched this show, I've had people reach out like, hey, I really love what you're doing. And it seems like a human. And then I look at their posts, and all of their posts are like, gain 10,000 followers or and I'm like, man, like,
That's
no, just block, delete, move on. I'm not going to answer you.
sure. Yeah, it's I have that issue on Facebook a lot now. I have a I have a Facebook page for my art stuff. I really it's sort of dead. I don't really use it too much, but they judge your page on your response time on getting back to messages, and it's like,
Yeah.
yo, 99% of my messages are all bots. So like my response time looks terrible, but it's because I'm not responding to I've since cut the messages off, but I'm not responding to bots. It's like that's a waste of time. It's crazy.
Yeah. 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 So, okay. So tell me, I'm curious to know your process since you're doing the writing and the artwork.
Sure.
Like, do you write a full script and then go back and do the art? Or is it like you're kind of writing as you're doing the artwork with like a general framework? Like, what does your process look like?
I've worked a few different ways. I've done like the Marvel stuff for myself as well on other stories, but specifically for this one, it's finished scripts, and then I work from that. And when I say finished scripts, I mean the plots. There, some things might change in the details when I get
Sure.
to pencil to paper, but the scripting process itself of the dialogue tends to happen more after I'm done. I mean, it's there, but it's very rudimentary. It's not really hammered out. But then once the script is done, I can look at the characters and see maybe if I had a different thought with somebody's face saying something different. So that's when it really when I really get to brass tacks in the dialogue phases once
Mhm.
the issue's over. But sometimes some issues it's the dialogue's there and it works. So
Yeah.
but for the most part with this book specifically, I like writing the issues out first. That way all the framework, the guesswork's out, and
Yeah.
I can just get to the drawing part.
Yeah. That's it. Do you like one part of it better than the other?
The creative process,
Yeah.
I like them both. To be honest with you, I love writing. I always wrote stories when I was a kid. And I've been working on this story forever, and I've written short stories and stuff for other people as well. But I love them both. They're both I love them equally for the same reason. They're both creative. I mean,
Yeah.
whether as a writer, when you're writing, you have all the imagery in your head is coming to life. So it's just like, I mean, it's not just like it is, it's art. So I really love them both of them for the same reason. But I guess uh, no, yeah, for the same reason. I was going to try to see how I get lost in one different than the other, but I don't.
Mhm.
I get lost in them both equally the same way, where I'm just in a conscious stream of trying to just trying to create. So yeah, I love writing and drawing. They're both hard work. As a writer yourself, it takes a lot to really to map out a story and make sure everything's working correctly, and you go over it and over and again. And it's no different with the pencil to paper. Sometimes you got to erase. Now I'm working digitally now, more so
Yeah.
than I was before. The first four issues are all traditional, but same thing. Yeah, it's just they're both really enjoyable ways to escape the world for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah, and I for me, that's the magic of writing is like I don't want to try and write a story for someone else. I just want to write something that I would enjoy writing because
Right.
then like as I'm writing it, I'm also reading it and getting lost in the story or the world or whatever that I'm creating. And so there's something about just doing it for you and a lot of the like discourse and conversation that I see on Twitter and on threads with other writers is people are like just write what is good for you,
Mhm.
like don't try and write something like the Tony from Comics and Chronic,
Mhm.
I think his handle is like Tony Nacho.
Mhm.
uh he was approached about doing a horror anthology and he was like, I've never written horror, like do I write it straight up, do I write it as comedy, like how do I what do I and so I was like, oh, I love horror, so I tapped into the comments and people were like, just write the horror story you want to read, and
Mhm.
like if it ends up being comedy, cool, if it ends up just being straight up horror, also cool, like
Right.
just do the thing. And I was like, okay, I try and do that anyway of
Right.
just writing for me, so if I'm entertained, great.
That's it. I think if you're writing for yourself, and as cheesy as it sounds, it's real. Do you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
I'm not trying to. and we're not, we're not alone in this world. There's
Right.
other people out there who like the same stuff that we do. So in writing for yourself authentically, you're going to find people organically that will like your stuff, and some people might not, but that's a chance you take,
Yeah.
but I think you're on the right path of just writing for yourself. And to your point, as a horror fan, I love, straight, psychological horror. I love the funny stuff. As horror fans, it's going to happen organically. And each issue might have a different flair, a different feel to it. It could have a feel like Hereditary, or the next one could have a feel like, Cabin in the Woods, where, just, because
Yeah.
horror goes hand in hand with comedy anyway, whether,
Yeah.
it's that gallows humor. So,
Yep. Yeah, and I was blessed or cursed, depending on how you feel about it, with a very dark sense of humor. So I experience horror movies very differently than most people, where I think that they're funny when
right,
they're not supposed to be funny, just because of how ridiculous some of the violence and stuff can be.
right.
And like, the early on dating my wife, we'll be married 10 years in November.
Oh, awesome.
But we've been together for close to 13.
Nice.
And like when we first started dating, I was like, I love horror. So like October is nothing but scary movies. I make a list and I watch the list,
That's so
and
fun.
I only watch scary movies. And she was like, okay, well, as long as they're like the original black and white monster movies, were cool. And I was like, I no.
Exactly. You
And
get a couple in there, but yeah, for the rest of the month, no, no, no.
yeah, it's like I'll start there, sure, and then like that'll be October 1st and 2nd is I'll do the 2 black and whites that I like, and then I'll just move on to everything else. But
Awesome.
like
That's
we would watch them, and I just, I like cackle at some of the movies, and she would
right.
just be like, "Are you okay? Do you need help? Like, should I call somebody?" It's like, no, 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 don't worry, it's fine. I was raised on horror. Like I
Yep.
started with the first scary movies that I ever saw were The Birds and Psycho back
Nice.
to back when I was like 10
That's
at
awesome.
my nana's house. And it was just like I was hooked from there. And so, when you set a bar that high with like Hitchcock,
For
it's
sure.
hard to not fall in love with the genre. So
For sure.
I'm curious, speaking of segues into inspirations, what's like, where do you find inspiration for Tome of Reckoning?
Uh, from all that horror stuff as well, man. I grew up. My mother showed me horror movies just like yourself at a very young age, and just my love of horror. Specifically, like the old, the monster movies.
Mhm.
Like I say old now, they are old, but like American Werewolf from London, The Howling, and then a lot of the slasher stuff. But just honestly, just my, like a kid of, I was born in the '70s, late '70s. It's my love of all that stuff that was around during that time. From sci-fi stuff to the horror stuff. We were eating well as genre fans back then. From
Yeah,
They Live to The Thing to The Exorcist to just all that stuff, the slasher stuff. So my inspiration really pulls from all over the place. But mostly I want to say it's the inspiration that I had for this book was because I could never find a comic that really encapsulated my love for that horror stuff at that particular time. There was the old EC stuff that was out,
yeah.
but there was nothing at that point when I was collecting comics that really scratched that itch that I was looking for. That was less superhero-y and more, adventure horror based stuff. So that's essentially why I put this book together.
That's cool. And that leads perfectly into like the DIY mindset and the whole like for me at least like I see that most prevalent in like the punk scene. I also grew up like once I found bands like The Clash and the Ramones and Rancid, like those were the bands that then opened my eyes to like this is what music can be. Like what else is there?
Totally.
And so then like from that I found my people of like yeah no I like that too, and having patches and stuff on my backpack and stuff like just it's what opened doors for me socially
Right.
to find people that then I suddenly was like oh I'm not like the weird person, like everybody else was listening to rap and country. And
Right.
I was like, no, 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 like we got to listen to this punk stuff, and like ska's incredible. And like,
Right.
you know, sometimes I can do the anger, like super angry, like Slipknot and Mudvayne stuff. But,
Mhm.
you know, other times I want to be like super happy and listen to like Real Big Fish and Less Than Jake.
Right. Right.
So like for me, those are like music styles and influences that then, you know, the more that again I got hyper focused,
Mhm.
learned like about the punk scene and that movement and the DIY mindset and all of that. And so then I just started doing a lot of stuff myself because no one else was going to do it for me.
Mhm.
So would you say that that is part of, like, without using as many words as I just did, is that like, is that kind of the, you know, you didn't see the comic on the shelves, so you just like, let's just bootstrap it and do it myself?
100%. And to your point, I mean, I'm still a punk rocker. As a kid, and to this day, and it's the DIY, feeling of putting stuff out. Minor Threat putting out their own stuff. Old Bad
Mhm.
Religion putting out their own. Epitaph was an independent place. No, Fat Records, Fat Mike, that was an independent. Put it out yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody's going to do it for you, like you said, man. So it's funny you mentioned Rancid and ska and stuff. I just went on a love Operation Ivy. But I guess
Yeah.
those guys are getting back together to do something in the studio right now with Jesse, the singer. So
Yep.
stoked for that. And I was just watching a bunch of old Op Ivy live videos from Gilman Street on YouTube. So
Okay.
yeah, it's just I love the DIY stuff, and my story is very punk rock. And it's telling as well. There's some punk rock stuff in there. So, but yeah, no, that's it, man. Just do it yourself. I mean, there's
Yeah.
nobody's going to do it for you. And with or without crowdfunding, I'm still, going to put this story out, just because it's that fire in me. And that just goes back to your point. I'm using way more words than you were. Sorry, brother.
No, you're good.
It goes to your point of that fire inside, that punk rock spirit, just to do it, just to get it out of you. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
for
Yeah,
sure.
and you're taking, I'm glad that this leans into where I wanted to go. So you have a unique approach that I've been Kickstarter helping kickstart
Mhm.
stuff for, I don't know, 5-10 years now.
Awesome.
Um and I don't think I've ever seen another book cross-platform crowdfund before. And so, similar to what the little squirrely guy says at the bottom, you're on Indiegogo, you're on Fund My Comic, and you're on Kickstarter. How does that how does that work?
It's I did that with the I didn't do Fund My Comic, but for the second issue, I did Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and it's not that
Mhm.
bad. I think the only thing is going back to our point of ease of use for sites. Kickstarter is it makes it a little bit more difficult when in order to ship stuff out, because you have to get surveys from people. So sometimes people forget to fill them out. So then it
Yeah.
looks like your book's late. But to their point, they have a million things going on. You back something a couple months ago, you forget. So but whereas Indiegogo gives you the addresses right away, so it's sort of nice to just be like, all right, you're out the door. I'm ready to put this out together. But it's not that bad. It's not that daunting. Especially if you finish them at the same time.
Yeah.
It's just more names added to a certain list. You know what I mean, so to speak. So
Yeah.
it's not that bad. And Fund My Comic, that's a great site to use for comic stuff. Really simple, in a good way, interface. And the cool thing is you can talk to Luke, who runs it on Twitter, and get his attention. He'll message you right back. So that's sort of a nice
That's
aspect of
cool.
that one. But I like them all. I just think I'm still getting used to how to promote myself with that stuff. Jolly is a heck of a pal of mine, but also a really great motivator and a good insight into how to get this stuff working better. So he's been trying to help me out with promoting stuff prior to
Yeah.
launch, which I'll be doing more so with book 4. Book 3 we sort of put out relatively quickly on all platforms, but that was just because I wanted to keep the ball rolling. I wanted to introduce these new characters, and then take a little bit of time off, like a month or so, to get issue 4 up to where it needs to be before we launch that, and do it properly by waiting to get a bigger mailing list. But they're all really great sites. I have no issues with either one of them, and I just want to give people the option to shop where they want to. Especially it's just like anything else.
Yeah.
you might like a certain product, but you might like shopping at a certain store. So I'd like to put my stuff wherever it can be easily reached, and hopefully people find it there and come back for more.
Yeah. Yeah. See, I having been on Kickstarter for as long as I have been, it's super simple for me at this point. Like, choose the reward. It's already got my payment stuff saved. It already has all my address and stuff saved for the surveys. And like I don't understand how, because I see creators send out those reminder emails
Mhm.
frequently, right? Like the next like 3 to 5 updates after a campaign successfully funds, it's like, hey, remember, fill out those surveys. Hey, I sent it. So can you for the love of God fill out your like how does it how
So,
as a backer do you not immediately fill that out when you see it? Like I just don't I don't understand.
well, I think sometimes it's not seen, and just because I think they're probably busy, maybe they have stuff going on. So I don't hold that against them. But it is just a little bit more difficult on the Kickstarter side with that, but like you said, if you have it all saved in there, that's a cool feature that they hopefully make it. Maybe some people have it. I don't know how that aspect works. It's been a while
Yeah.
since I've actually backed anything on Kickstarter. Not for any other reason than just funds. Otherwise, I'd
Yeah.
be probably not kickstarting and doing that stuff for my own book. I would just pay for it out of my pocket. Um, but
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, it's definitely it's I feel bad, for a backer when they don't get back in touch with me, just because I feel like they're waiting on something they might not have realized they missed an email here or there. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to me to hear. So I don't think I've done anything on Indiegogo before, and I only just discovered Fund My Comic like 3 months ago. Um, and so I don't have any idea how their platform works yet, because I'm definitely going to get on there and see, for lack of more money, which is totally fine. Just again, don't tell my wife. But I got this super backer label on Kickstarter, and I was like, "Yay!" And then I
awesome.
looked at my bank account, and I was like, "Yay!"
So funny, man. Well, hopefully when
But
the time comes when you finally get, your opus out there, that people remember that you were somebody that made their dream come true, and they can do the same for you, brother. So
mm,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah, I mean, it's all about support. Like, I mean, we mentioned before we hit the live button, but there's something, the more involved I get with the indie comic scene, the cooler it is. And like the more cool people I get to know and talk to and interact with, even if like I don't even know their name, but like I know Jolly Green is gonna hook me up with, indie creators that are looking for a show that they can talk about their book on. So I'm absolutely gonna reach out to those people.
it's awesome.
And I just think it's like it gets a lot of flack because of like some indie folks being part of the comic skate nonsense or whatever.
Right,
And it's like there's no room for just like shitty people in indie comics. Like there just
right,
isn't. Like, can we just be more positive? And so instead of trying to like go through and beat everybody else that's not being positive,
right.
I'm just trying to flip the script. Like, let's just be positive, right?
That's
Like, let's just inject some positivity into social media outlets and into conversations that, may not have it otherwise. And like, it
oh,
has to start with us. And that's that DIY thing of like, I want to see positive people talking about indie comics.
totally.
So I'm gonna be a positive person talking about indie comics.
I agree. And it's one of those things too where it's like, look, there's stuff out there that I hate. You know what I mean? Like, not hate. That's a strong word that I don't like. But
Yeah.
like an ex-girlfriend, I don't pay attention to it. I like to move on and talk about stuff that I like. So that's why you'll always see me, I'm too old, man. And even when I wasn't old, to harp on things I don't like. If I don't like it, I'm done with it. I don't give it my attention. So
Yeah.
like you, I'd rather focus on the positive stuff. And that's putting out my own book. That's looking at other people putting out their own books and kicking ass out there. And I think that's what it's about, man. And look, even the drama stuff has its place. Drama meaning, I don't like this, I don't like that.
Yeah.
But I think now's the time, and it's something I speak to Jolly with, and I'm sure you've spoken to with him too, and you and I are talking about it now. Positivity, man. I think that goes a long way. I think people a little tired of the dour, mopey stuff. Let's get a smile on people's faces. What do you like? Stop telling
Yeah.
me what you hate. What do you like? So I'm with you, man. 100%. That's awesome.
Yep.
I think your voice is going to be very welcomed in the community, and is already welcome in the community. I see you're talking to John's Long Box, I think, or
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, I'll be live with him tomorrow.
that's awesome.
Yeah, he reached out and was like, "Hey, you do YouTube, I do YouTube. You want to connect?" And I was like, "Absolutely." Like, I'm so young in this show,
Mhm.
even though like broadcasting is what my degree is in. I've been doing it for 15 years now.
Awesome.
Um, and like I've worked in a bunch of different aspects of it, and
Mhm.
then it just got to a point where the thing that I was doing had to end
Right.
because of like just technical support, and the platform I was using is doing
Nice.
away with it. So I was like, all right, well, like either this dies and I don't have a creative outlet anymore because this is not my day job. It would be great if someone would sponsor the show and I could,
Right.
happily plug whatever beverage or whatever. I don't care.
Knock on
But
wood. I hope so, brother.
right, anyone at all. But like I had to have a creative outlet, and I've been wanting to do a show about comics for a long time, and I just floated out the idea like, "Hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing," back in March. And I had like 3 people by the end of the week like, "Hey, if you get that off the ground, like I'm in. I would love to come on, like I'll help you any way I can." It was just like, "Oh god, already? Like I don't even have a name for it." And it's like it's just an abstract idea that I kind of pulled down and just was like, I'm an external processor. So I have to like get it out of me, and then I can figure out what's wrong with it and make it better and get
Right.
feedback and stuff. And it just was like it gained traction very quickly, and I'm just trying to keep up. Like I'm white knuckling right now, and I'm just like saying yes to any interview I can because
Awesome.
the more building and base that I can get, then the more people I can hopefully impact to
Mm,
support indie comic creators, be
for sure.
positive, and open your ears to new music. Like it's all around you, and there's people creating incredible things all over the place. If anyone just slows down enough to actually take the time to look outside of themselves.
Right.
And so, like, if I can help the industry that has been so pivotal to the core of who I am for well over 3 decades,
Awesome.
like great. I would love to give back just 2% of what I feel like the industry has given me. So I don't know how we got here. Dio, I don't remember how
Well,
we got here, but
I think having an extra positive voice, and one as jovial and fun as yours is welcome in the community, brother. So I hope everything is up from here. So yeah, for sure, man. It's awesome. Yeah, I think that's you're on the right path, and I think, like I said, it's needed to have a positive. Yeah, and there's other channels too. You're in a great category of other channels that are doing this positive thing, man. So thank you very much for putting that out there, because that's what I like to see. So being a little selfish, but
absolutely.
I love it, man. Thanks.
Great. Hey, if I'm doing it just for you, totally fine.
Awesome.
That's totally fine. So I want to just kind of switch gears. So or actually like go back to gears. I don't know what it is. When it comes to working with your wife and
Mhm.
the studio aspect at home and the like working on a thing together, is there like, and I don't want this to sound like I'm just poking the bear, but I kind of want to poke the bear a little bit.
I know where
Is
it's going.
there is there ever tension with like, because it's your art and you're writing and then she's coming in and doing the coloring and like, is there ever tension creatively between the two of you
And I
with
wouldn't
that?
I wouldn't say tension in a sense where I'm like, do this right, or like, let me see. More like, can you do this? And she's like, yeah, sure. After I take care of our 2 kids. So yeah, it's fun tension. But she's so good that it just, it's one of those things where when I see what she's doing, it's awesome. It's just more about finding time right now. I think it's gonna get easier as the kids get older. We just had a newborn. She's what, 2 months old now.
Oh,
So
geez.
yeah,
So
and
you're
we have
not sleeping at all. Got
no,
it.
yeah, just getting back to sleep. And I say that as I was taking the brunt of it. The first one, I was up all the time. It's your first kid. You're like, is SIDS going to happen? So I got to make sure, she's okay. This one, not that we don't look after her either, but she's, it's just like anything, the second one is a little bit easier. So, but Jules, the one who took the brunt of the staying up with this one. And so she's got her hands full with that stuff. So anytime she could find time to color, it's awesome in my book. And I got to make sure I smile and say thank you because she's the least amount of sleep between the both of us right now. So
Right. And you said you're already working on issue 4, so is issue 3 like completely done?
Issue 3 is not completely done. I mean, it's I want to say 98% there. She's done all the flats for it. We're waiting on letters. And then I'm actually adding 4 new pages to it due to one of our stretch goals. So I'm working on those right now. Issue 4 is fully penciled and inked. We're just waiting on colors and letters for that. But I'm going to take for issue 4, I'm going to wait till it's fully done before I put it up. Like I did for issues 1 and 2, they were fully done. This one should be done in time. Everything's flatted. We're looking to ship by like middle to the end of July. So we definitely have ample time to get it out there. But I think for the next one, I'm going to wait till I get everything done as well. And I'll be working on the pencils and inks for issue 5 in that time as well. But yeah, it's like 98, 95% there. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you planning on doing a collected version at all, or are you just sticking to like the single floppies?
No, I think for each, my main goal would be to do collections, but I'd like to release them as floppies in order to give people who do the crowdfunding aspect get something at least that is exclusive to the crowdfunding scene. Like if you get a floppy from me, there's extra artwork, especially for for the first print, so to speak, through the crowdfunders. There's extra art on the back cover, and that won't be on there with the subsequent second prints. But the way I'm doing it is I ran issue 1, issue 2, and issue 3 as floppies. But when issue 3 came time to put out, I'm putting a trade together of issue 1 and 2. So that's what I'd really like to do is do 2 book trades at the very end of the whole run that people can get them and stand them up, and they'll be the perfect bound stuff. And it just seems like it'd be the way to go towards the end. But I'm putting floppies out there for people who like floppies. I ran a poll, and it's just, it is running a poll. Like we were talking earlier, there's so many different sites that you just don't get an actual consensus on what people want. So I wanted to give everybody an option with that stuff. So I'll do floppies for each premiere issue, and then every issue after that will be contained in little trades.
Okay. And yeah, I'll just let you know, I'm a sucker for the square bound, like 80 page, they're not like a huge like shelf filler like these guys are, but they're like, it's become such a weird, like that's what I collect now, or the like double length, just perfect bound. There's something about them that just like, it gets me excited. And I'm just like, man, and I just keep any comic shop I go to. I was out last week and I went to a shop I don't normally go to because I had the time. Mm-hmm. And I got talking to the owner, and he was like, so what do you collect now? And I was like, well, it's funny because like, I do a bunch of Kickstarting crowdfunding stuff, and I'm buying a bunch of indie stuff. But then like when it comes to the big 2, I'm just either like trade waiting, or if there's like the square bound one shots from like the 80s and 90s when those were, and like the magazine oversized format, like Distillery is currently doing, like those are right up my alley. And so suddenly he was like, oh, I think I have saw over. And so he was like digging through the boxes that he had just bought of, to find stuff. And I ended up buying way more than I planned on because he just kept pulling stuff out. I was like, I've never seen this before. I gotta, and so here we are. I have a stack now on over next to me. But yeah, so
that's a good problem to have for sure. Actually, I'm with you. That's why I wanted to do my the ones that I'm doing that are collected will be 72 pages long, I think. Which it's just I like that look. I like the way those books look, and I want to actually at the very end have like a box that you could put them in that looks like a big tome, so to speak. Cool. I'm with you, man. I like that. I like that stuff. That it's just a perfect size. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Sure.
more than like a 7-minute read, which
Mhm.
is about where I'm at usually for like a single issue floppy, but that's usually like 22 pages.
Right.
But yeah, like if I can sit down for a half an hour
Mhm.
and read a story, and at the end of it, I'm like, that was a good story.
Right.
That's perfect for me.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, we have lives. There's stuff going
Right.
on. It's like you can't. And then with also you don't want to come back. Sometimes I like to get that story. I like to escape and then be in the real world right afterwards. So I'm with you on that. It's a
Yeah.
perfect size
Yep.
for sure.
Yeah, so when you get there, I'm basically saying like at least I'm going to be buying those
That's
because
awesome. I'll let
that's
you know.
it's my jam. Yeah. So,
Awesome.
okay. One of the things that I always like to do is basically just give you, as an indie creator and as a cool person, just space to say anything that you have on your mind, on your heart. It could be about the book. It could be about whatever. Because indie creators need, I feel like, a space or an outlet to just be able to say whatever, like have the freedom to say whatever. So I don't have a question for this. I more or less just say, if you have something that is on your mind, like the floor is yours. So
Sure.
this is your spot.
I think everybody out there that's writing, drawing, directing, keep doing it. It might not always feel like it's fruitful, but as long as it's fruitful to you and you have some enjoyment coming out of it, don't stop. And just be positive out there, people. It's a tough world. We don't know what everybody else is going through, and when it comes to entertainment that you're really not into, if that's the worst of your struggles, then you got it pretty good. So smile, give somebody a high five, give your family a hug, kiss your wives, your husbands, and just be good to each other.
I
Not
love it.
very, I mean, not very indie creatorish, but I think humanist. I think
Yeah.
that's something we need a little more out of the world. So yeah, that's it. That's all I got to say.
It's great. No, I love it because it seems so simple to say, and yet like so many people struggle with it that they just want to focus on the negative or like tearing other people down or whatever. And like we can get very psychological and breaking all that down
Totally.
and past traumas and all of that things. But
Exactly. Yeah.
um like at the end of the day, I completely agree. Like, let's just choose to be positive and like be better to people.
Yeah, for sure.
Um, yeah, I love it. I love it. I looking at my notes here, am at the end of my notes.
Yeah.
So,
Well, dude, thank
um,
you.
yeah, absolutely. I look forward to when do all of your campaigns, when does all that end? That's coming up, right?
1 week. Yes. So we have 1 week. They end next week, I think, on Sunday. I probably will be putting some original artwork up to see if anybody's interested from issues 1 and 2. So if anybody's watching now before it closes, keep an eye out for that. But it ends in 1 week, and I just can't say thank you enough to everybody that's funded, pledged, retweeted, liked, had me on their shows. It's been awesome. It's been fun, and just a big thank you to everybody that's made my little story come to fruition and come to print, man. So yeah.
Cool. I love it. As Europe said, this is the final countdown of the campaign. So, how about a non-punk 80s band for you?
Hey, listen, that's still, it's still 80s and from my youth before I found the punk scene. So it's
There you
still
go.
it still feels good to hear that. It's the final countdown. Yeah, I love
I'm immediately going to go listen to that song now.
it. That's awesome.
Well, Dio, I appreciate you taking some time out of your evening to hang out with me.
Thank you.
Best of luck on this final week.
For sure.
Hopefully, this gets some traction. And of course, I'm going to blast out everywhere. Where can people find you on social media?
On Twitter at Reckoning Comics, on Instagram at DJA_Dionysius, Dionysios, and on Facebook as Dionysius as well. Not the restaurant, but I'm sure it's a good place. But yeah, that's all the places they can find me.
Great. And I've got the campaigns, all three of them are linked below. And I will make sure to update to include the Instagram and Facebook. I only found your Twitter, but I will make sure to include the other two links that everybody can find you in the description. But yeah, so that's going to do it for this interview. And instead of being a Midwesterner and going on for another 20 minutes, which I absolutely could, I'm going to say to you, dude, thanks again for coming on the show and just hanging out with me. I look forward to reading The Reckoning, post campaigns close.
For sure.
And until we talk next time, I look forward to seeing more from you on social media.
Awesome. Chris, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to have me on. You are a gem of a man. Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. It's really been fun talking to you. So, and I'll be watching you on John's Long Box coming up. So
perfect. Yep. That'll be tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard. So cool. Well, as the tagline goes for this show, because every show has to have a tagline, that's going to be it for this interview, punks. So why don't you go read some comics because they're good for you. Hang tight, Dio.
nice.